everybody. Welcome back to Futsal News Live. You're here just in time. Congratulations. We are here. We're not alone. We always try and bring a guest. And Luke and I are joined by Malissa Galiffo from Columbus Futsal. We're super excited to have her here on the podcast. So welcome, Melissa. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. So for the folks at home that don't know, Melissa is involved with Columbus Futsal and Columbus Futsal's women's division. Not only that, Columbus Futsal has an academy as well for youth. So, Melissa, why don't you start us off and tell us a little bit about how you got involved with futsal and a little bit about the background with Columbus.
Yeah, okay. We have a great origin story. I feel like I tell this all the time, everyone that I talk to, but it's a great story. So I got involved with futsal. I was just invited to pick up. And it's the pickup event that Dante had been running for, at that time, like eight or 9 years. I don't know. I can't remember. So he had been running the street soccer pickup group for the better part of a decade. And his sister actually invited me to go play. And I was like, I don't really play soccer. You know, it's not my thing. And she's like, no, it's all skill levels. You can come. And I was like, okay. So I went and I saw, you know, this whole like urban futsal, street soccer, like vibe happening on, and just like, it was just so incredible to see. And it had such a cool vibe. And I was like, wow, this is really neat. And it reminded me the summer before, I was in Italy and I saw actually like a futsal tournament being played in one of the piazzas, like in Napoli. And I was like, oh, I have seen people do this before. And those were kind of like my first exposures to futsal. And after that, I just kind of started going, or like would take the kids, and then Dante and I started seeing each other, and then eventually, you know, like we're married, and he proposed to me on the futsal court that we play street soccer at. So it's been like, I mean, that's like our home. Like that's like where our heart is. Like that's where he and his dad had created Columbus Futsal on this court. And so it's actually like the birthplace of the club. And that was back in 2006. I stepped into the scene in 2014. And then 2015 is when we really started putting it into like a formal organization, like making that transition from grassroots pickup play and forming it into a formal organization. And I really consider us like a social enterprise, because we do so much for the community and so much for others. And there's like a huge group of people that we serve continuously throughout the year. And so we've just spent the last now eight or so years kind of figuring out what our organization like ebbs and flows. But the origin story is street soccer pickup group, and then started forming it into the formal youth academy for instructions, and then the men's team, and then now a women's team.
You know what I like about that is so many other countries that are prolific in futsal start on the streets. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of cool that your guys' club has the same roots that we see from places like Brazil and Argentina and Eastern Europe, where, you know, these kids are, you know, it's a ball and a space. So that's really cool. That's interesting that a pickup game is kind of where it all started with your involvement. That's really, really neat.
Oh, yeah. And it wasn't like formal futsal. It didn't have goals. So this ball right here is actually the first ball that Columbus Futsal ever played with. And we still have it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
That ball's like almost 17 years old. It's funny. So this was not even like a painted surface. I mean, it was rough blacktop. It was worn out, had not been cared for like whatsoever. There were not goals. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen pictures of it online, but we're pretty well known for like the scenery. There's a graffiti mural, and then just like blacktop, and then all around it is just fenced caging. And at the time, we have goals there now, but we didn't when it started. So they had used those metal trash bins that you find in the park. And it was essentially like kick the can. I mean, it was the rawest form of the game that you could find. And it was totally organic. They brought those South American roots here in Columbus, and I love that their family's from Peru. So like Dante's dad was born there and then immigrated to the United States, and then Dante's first generation American. So I love when people can like immerse their cultures into new places and then share that culture with others. And so this raw form of this game, it was so fun. They played with trash cans. We didn't have anything fancy. And it was 1 point if you hit the can, and it was 2 points if you made it into the can.
Oh, no way.
And they just played 7-minute games or first to 2 goals. And it was honestly the first time I saw it was one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen in my life. I was like, this is so awesome. And I just immediately fell in love with it and like had a passion for it. And I knew it's like, watching it, you're just like, this is a gem. Like, this is so underground, but this is such a gem. I want to scream this from the rooftops, and everybody should know about it.
It's crazy how this sport, soccer is kind of the same way, but I feel like futsal even more so because it's such a niche market at this point. The community is so passionate. Like you have true passionate fans of it right now. So it's kind of cool to hear that, because I know when I first came into the sport, I felt kind of similar. It was love at first sight. And all I could think was, man, I wish I would have found this sooner. It's amazing how this funny little game can grip our hearts and drag us along for the ride and keep us enthralled. So how did it evolve from there from you guys? So you mentioned it started in the street, and actually I think, was it last year you guys celebrated an anniversary, right? With the I think you posted something on your social media of some old footage from that court, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Is that something you guys still utilize from the academy?
Yeah, that footage was like from like 2007, but last year in June, it was the 16-year anniversary. So this year will be 17 years. And a few years back, it was pre-pandemic, we started doing what was called a Founders Cup. So the Columbus Futsal organization was actually founded in June of 2006. So in June, we started running these Founders Cups, and it was that raw form of street soccer. We used the trash bins and everything, and everybody just kept saying it was such a fun. We made it like a one-day event, but it was like several rounds and then like a knockout round and all this stuff. That everybody just kept saying how fun it was, and they never had been to a tournament style like event like that. So we're definitely going to bring that back this summer after a hiatus, with all the other things going on in the world. But yeah, after that kind of street soccer morph into a formal organization, we started training teams because we realized that in our region there were other futsal academies or other people like us, that kind of started as solopreneurs, and just because they have a passion for their game, or it's a coach now, who got too old for the game and is coaching, young kids and taking people, under his wing and stuff like that. So we were finding not necessarily people close by, but like in neighboring states that were kind of in that entrepreneurial phase that we were in. And then we found out about the Great Lakes Regional in Akron. And that was our first event that we ever went to in 2015 or 2016. And we won. Oh, no we were champions. And we actually beat ABK at the time. It was ABK. So that game kind of set like the momentum. It was like, oh, okay, we really got something here. We really have something to build on. And ever since then, it's always been like a really fun rivalry. But I try to kind of explain to people, even though like we're clubs and we compete against each other, when we're on the same common mission of like developing kids or trying to help leagues grow and stuff, we're colleagues. So we talk all the time, but when it's game time, we compete and it's fun. But we know at the end of the day, after the game's over, we have to go back to being dedicated to the same mission.
That's an interesting thing you brought up too, is the dynamic of kind of this Midwest region of the United States. I think competitive but friendly neighbors is best way I can, most diplomatic way I can put it. But it's interesting, and you and I got to talk at the regional tournament here just last week because it made its way back around for this year, and seeing a lot of familiar faces from teams like Olay, Old ABK, Jenga, you guys. It's kind of Futsal Factory. It's really interesting because you see all these guys that are coaching and playing against each other, every other week or so, and then they're there as coaches with these youth academies. And just kind of seeing the smiles on faces as they're watching it grow is kind of infectious as well. It's one more layer of that love that you have for the sport is watching it develop right before your eyes. So that was really cool. What about
our core pioneer group that's kind of been spearheading it, in this region?
And what about that group would you say is making it work around here? Because it seems like the league is very healthy compared to maybe say some other things that are going on in the country for futsal right now. Do you think there's a special sauce to this recipe, or what's your take on the dynamic in this area and why it's working?
I'm not sure. I know in several, rooms that I've been in or several conversations that I've been in, I always tell people the Great Lakes is so robust in futsal. Like, we're like the most robust region. And I started to think about it. I'm like, I don't know if it's because we get snow and, we're dedicated to that winter period. But then I was like, no, that can't be it, because Florida, California, Texas, their futsal players are amazing. So I'm like, oh, it has nothing really to do with winter. And then I really just think that we're making it happen here with kind of like we all gel and we all mesh. And I think it's just the mission. Like, we all see the vision. We all see what this can become. And it's kind of like right place, right time. It's like divine timing. Like, I swear to you, it is. But it's just like all these pieces came together at the right place, the right time. And it was just, I don't have another way to describe it.
Hey, I want to jump in real quick because you're talking about Columbus roots. And I don't know if you know where I'm from. I'm out here in Idaho. And what's funny is your story of coming up and playing in the streets was really similar to my intro to futsal. I hit it way later in life. And just to kind of speak to that special sauce of what's going on in the Midwest, it's very real, because I kind of experienced the opposite here with, a lot of blowback, a lot of digging of heels, a lot of soccer centric thinking folks, So just to kind of speak to, like, you had people out here like watching Columbus come up, because I remember watching Columbus on Facebook. I was like, oh man, look at this is so amazing. And I felt the same thing you did with like, this is special. And I tried to create it here. But man, Midwest has something going on with a lot of like-minded people over there, because, stuff that didn't take off here has taken off in the Midwest. And, I thought it was close enough to Rose City and Portland to catch some of what they were doing. But unfortunately, Idaho is just a little too small.
Yeah. I don't know how to describe it. It's just luck. We're lucky,
It's a great place over there.
What you were talking about with the, the challenges and the pushback, there's definitely been that. I mean, every year you still face that, or you run into the people that were giving you challenges and pushback, or more soccer centric. And I understand that position, because it is a lot of the guys that were maybe like in their 30s during the 90s when the soccer push was coming through America. Mm-hmm. And so those guys who are now 50 were 30 something, and they're in a young professional age during the 90s, and they were the ones advocating and pushing for soccer. Right. So they don't want to see it go anywhere, but it's not going to go anywhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I kind of feel like, okay, 20 years later, 30 years later, now there's this group pushing for futsal, and it's kind of like the same thing. So I understand where they're coming from, like the pushback, but I also feel like a lot of that pushback is that people don't want to be exposed to what they don't know. And
Correct.
so if you are just like, position yourself as the expert, for one, and not like in an egotistical way, but just saying like, hey, we're the pioneers here. We're the experts. We're the most comprehensive program, you know, around. And we want to be a resource for you guys. Like, we want to help you. Like, let's play more futsal.
Right.
And that's kind of like the icebreaker, but it's hard to get people to accept that a lot. But definitely part of our journey has been figuring out how to navigate through that pushback.
Yeah, definitely.
So I hope you guys figure it out in Idaho.
That ship has sailed. I said, you know, when the largest soccer club in Idaho comes after you, you're just like, all right.
It's interesting that, like, this is something we've talked about several times on the live stream, but it's true, is that I see a lot of fear too of, I think, some of these guys that run these academies as a business, which as they should. I mean, if it doesn't make money, it's not a charity, but I think they're afraid to lose their kids. And so many futsal academies, particularly in the Midwest and the Great Lakes, and a great example is what Luke was trying to do, or our club Neutral. You go and partner with somebody like that and let them protect your kids during the winter instead of them going and playing indoor someplace and getting hurt or not learning anything. Oh no, it's just interesting. I think that a lot of it is, for me, it's two-pronged. It's that, and it's exactly what you said, Melissa. I think it's a fear of the unknown and not wanting to expose yourself to something that you don't know and maybe aren't as confident in. But I see so many players in the Premier League and beyond that are advocating for futsal. You know, you see that brilliant kick save during the World Cup. You know, that's a classic futsal goalkeeper maneuver. You see some guys that are making millions of dollars a year, and they're literally out there in interviews saying, I owe it to futsal. So it's kind of refreshing. I hope that helps kind of drive it, and maybe some of these soccer or football purists will hear that and give us a shot, because there's certainly something for everyone in our sport, whether you want to do it full time or do it as a developmental tool. It can be used both ways. And I think that when people see the passion in it, like you or Dante do, and the thing I like about you two, and the thing that got me into it locally, is the people that passion is infectious. And, you know, the next thing you know, you want to run through a wall for futsal. So it's kind of interesting. It's I think we'll see it develop. It's just a long, long road, of course. But like you said, it takes some pioneers to blaze that road. And I think that's the crew right now that we're looking at. Is I think that the United States is looking at its grassroots folks that are going to build this thing out and pave the way for hopefully someone else to have an easier job and take it to that next big step.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to take a quick second and compliment you on your guys' social media work. I think personally, and I've told you before, but in personal conversation and in Discords and stuff, but I think Columbus Futsal's social media is the best work in the NFPL and in the area as far as futsal. One of the best, I think, in the country for the youth programs. Where does that come from? Do you guys have some background in that, or have you just found a way to really connect with the team and keep things clean? Because your guys' branding is second to none.
Thank you. So I think it's just creativity. And my background was aesthetics. So it was very art centered with like the beauty industry and like skincare and makeup and stuff. So my background was aesthetics. So anything that I'm looking at online and I notice like the slightest mishap in how aesthetically pleasing it is, I'm just like, oh. But so I think that was kind of like my driving force, is just I saw that when we first got into futsal and we started forming it into an organization, and I would see people that had been maybe doing it a little longer than we had, like a year or two, and I'm like, why are they not using social media as a tool? Like, they're doing all these great things that I know I want to know about and I want to follow, but they don't post on social. They don't tell anybody it's happening, and they're not building a community. And I think for us, it was, you're not going to go anywhere or have anything if you don't build. And the easiest way to build a community is through social media. I mean, we already had our community at the pickup court, but that social media community really grew it. Like people from all over the world follow us. So like in some of our insights, only like 69% of the people that follow us are even in the United States. And then only like 20% of them are even in our city. So it was really like, this is a global game. It's a global market. We want to fit in on the global scene. And I really just kind of took the time to have professionals like develop a brand guide for us. And that really actually like took it to the next level so that everything was uniform. Like I had all the color codes and they like, you know, created like custom colors that are like built into our brands. So like the blue is electric blue, like Columbus Futsal is known for that hot electric blue, right? So they named it electric blue, and then the black in it is called night game. And then any gray variation is called concrete court. And so they like gave us, you know, our colors, they did the typography, and then I just have like templates that I run and I use and repeat them in like a cycle for every game day. And then other things too, I make sure that they're branded, but like reels or like TikToks and stuff, that's just like Dante's very creative like that. And I like to get creative like that sometimes. So it's just part of your passion too, but it's also part of like being an entrepreneur. You're like, okay, I woke up today. What am I doing? Am I going to be a creator? Am I doing like accounts receivable? Am I like putting out fires and doing customer service? Like you really kind of got to pick and separate what you're doing that day. But if I don't do anything else for the day, like my number one go-to is, well, I got to do my social media. And then after I do my social media, I'm kind of like, okay, I've put my voice out into the world. Now I can do the boring, like mundane stuff. And then I'll check social media later. So it's almost like kind of like rewarding, and it's something that I enjoy. So yeah, I just kind of put the necessary pieces in, but I think the brand guide really, really, really helps. And then having an origin story, being authentic, you know, just not being one of those pop-up copycat, you know, kind of things. Like you really have to be authentic and have that passion, have that origin story, and have that community. I think all those things help.
Absolutely. What I'd say too, and this is not a dig, but Hummel jerseys are kind of predictable, and a lot of people in this area use them. So you kind of see you talk about that copy paste. It's very predictable. And your guys' color scheme, and I think you have 3 or 4 different kits that use that unique color. But you guys always stand out. Everywhere I see you guys, you recognize the color. You know who it is. You don't even have to see the logo on the jersey to know it's Columbus Futsal. And I think you guys have just really nailed that on the head. So I just wanted to make sure I said that, put it out into the internet. Like Columbus Futsal does a great job. You guys deserve all kinds of kudos for that. The branding is on point. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
And then on top of that, for what you guys are involved in, you guys have the Youth Academy, like we've been talking about, and then of course the NFPL connection. And I wanted to ask you about that because you guys are founding members of the NFPL, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've doubled down and become a founding member of the women's division as well as the Rising Stars division. So I wanted to ask you. Actually, this is great. Look at this. So this is your guys' website and just kind of the interaction on it. Luke, thank you for pulling this up. Like this is really clean.
Yeah, it looks so
love
good.
This.
Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you, but I was like, oh, hey, I can do this.
No, that's good. But yeah, I would encourage anybody else that's trying to get the word out there for futsal to take a look at this. And you know, I don't know about telling them to copy it, but if you want to use this blueprint, I mean, absolutely, I think that it's going to get people's attention. It surely got ours when we started to learn about Columbus. So
this particular TikTok made me laugh.
Oh yeah. Guys, oh my gosh, I feel like they get so tired of me sometimes, but I'm like,
so good. It was so good.
I'm like, we're doing ugly sweater and arrival time is 5 p.m. and I'm going to film everybody walking through the door. And it's really like for 20 seconds of fame, but it's just so fun afterwards, you know, like you have to have fun with it. You just
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway.
No, it was great. I love seeing the look on their faces too as they're walking in. Like you can tell the guys that are a little ornery about it. Like, yeah, that's right. Check this out. You know, and the guys like, oh man.
Because we've done like wear your best drip. We've done like cats or dogs. I've called them out and I've just like done what time does everybody show up for a 7 p.m. kickoff, and then I put the time that each player likes arrives. But
I love that.
That's a huge thing in our social media process too, is just connecting all of our followers, like all of our faithful or like new people getting exposed, giving them that connection to the players. Like, hey, these are real people, and like we're real people out here having fun, and like come have fun with us, and like get to know these guys, get to know us, you know, get to know our kids because they're awesome too. And just I love sharing that stuff.
And it's quality, you know, you guys put it out there and it's good stuff. People can get connected to it immediately. It's clean. It's not just, you know, Luke and I talk about this all the time, but you know, the folks that'll throw up a cell phone at half court on the floor and you just can't really see what's going on. It's blurry, but what you do is clearly very thoughtful, and it shows you care what your consumers see, and that you want them to be a part of it and be a part of this special thing. And it looks special when you put it out there. Absolutely. I mean, it's textbook. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Shout out Brian Reese.
Yeah. Shout out to Brian. He's our streaming savior.
He does a great job. He does an excellent job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian is fantastic.
Because I love, you know, what he does and what he's been able to do. And I can't wait till, you know, the women's first game is broadcast like that. And they get to show everybody, you know, who's watching and who follows us, and that they're on this stage too. And I can't wait till they have that platform and they have that spotlight. I know we're going to do it Saturday in Michigan, but it's not the same as when we do it at home.
There's something about that home stand. Yeah. There really is.
Hey,
and I think you guys too, from what I hear through the streams, I haven't been down to a game yet, but I plan to, is you guys definitely have a bit of you guys have a strong fan base, it seems, as well, that's passionate. You can hear them cheering. It gets loud in that building. I'm sure it's a place that other teams circle on the calendar like, okay, this is going to be a tough one right here. We got to be mentally strong for this one.
Yeah. Our fans definitely make it challenging for the other team to play underneath that kind of close pressure and noise. And, you know, they're the best. They've helped us win lots of games, and we've been able to pull off like amazing things on the court for them, like when they're there. And yeah, it's definitely, I love the environment, like the Panda, the drums, like the kids, some of the old facilities that we were in, like all of our CFA players and even just community residents, they would, every time we score, they would run down the court, like on the sideline in front of the bleachers, and they would like run back. And it was their thing, and it was so fun. And I'm like, oh my God, this is dangerous. I don't want them to get kicked or something. But yeah, that our home opener before Christmas, it wasn't too busy. I feel like everybody was in like the holiday bustle, but the game on January 28th is benefiting Nationwide Children's On Our Sleeves movement for children's mental health. So I think that one will be a lot busier. You know, we've paired a cause with it, just supporting, you know, Nationwide Children's Hospital here, and then their department that they've dedicated to children's mental health. It's just something that we're really passionate about. And they've created like coaching guides, you know, for coaches to help with whatever their players might be struggling with. I know that's always, you know, it's hard to do. It's hard for coaches. They don't come with that knowledge. You know, they don't come equipped for that. So if we can have those resources there, or we can share those resources with our network, and we can help support them in the research that they're doing, I'm so looking forward to this event in January.
That is really cool. Yeah, you guys, that's another thing that
to donate. Anybody can donate from anywhere. So a portion of the tickets will automatically go to them, but anybody online can donate to the cause.
Do you have a link for us or no?
Yeah, is that a link we can share with the chat? Is it on the
Yeah, they're on the front page of our website. think it said like on our sleeves, or I can put it in the chat if you want me to go.
Let's go back to
we
the
can
website.
pull that up and make sure and share it with the chat. That's another thing that I wanted to make sure and point out is if you're someone that's new to futsal and you're trying to find a team to cheer for, we've talked to some other people from the NFPL. I actually saw a comment in the chat about Eric Haggerty being a influencer and a player that's involved in YouTube as well. We talked to him last month. So that's something unique about them. One thing that I think is unique about Columbus, if you're looking for a team in the NFPL, is they are very, as you've heard from Melissa so far, is they're very connected to the community. Not only the grassroots of growth of their club and its beginnings, but also just work with charities. If you're looking for a team that does some good as well as what they do on the court, Columbus does a great job. They're definitely someone you should follow. And the January 28th game, remind me, Melissa, who is that against? I'm trying to remember who you guys host that weekend.
It's against Jinga. So it's our like Battle of Ohio Hell is Real match. Yeah.
Hey,
that's that awesome. Top link up there where it says next home. Yeah.
Oh, on our sleeves there in red. Okay.
And On Our Sleeves is a nationwide thing. So their mission is to provide children's mental health resources to every family in America. So and it's all free.
Good deal.
So cool.
That's great. Can I jump in here, Jake, or am I gonna cut you off here?
No, go ahead.
So, okay, so I don't know you, Melissa, but I'm gonna take a shot in the dark here. I wanted to touch on this, and to me, you strike me as someone who knows what they want, a very strong personality, and someone who's willing to go out and get it. And so, to me, my question is, as an empowered female in the industry, can you share your thoughts with what that's been like, or maybe your journey, because you strike me as someone who goes out and gets it and does it and gets it done, and these are qualities that I share with my 3 daughters, and I'm always like, you can do this, no one can tell you anything, and you strike me as that strong female role model. Can you share with me kind of, or the audience, just kind of what that journey's been like for you?
Very difficult. Very difficult, but like I will never give up. So it's definitely difficult being in a male dominant industry and getting your footing, and then not only getting your footing but making it valuable and getting into those rooms and those conversations to share that value with others is difficult. And I can tell you it's only happened probably like a handful of times where it's just like, yes, I needed to meet those people. I needed to have that conversation. But in everyday actuality, I mean, there's still so many times where it's just dismissive, it's so easy to dismiss a woman in sports. And I kind of like, I don't let it go. I'll call them out like immediately, or I know when I have like good ideas or ways to improve things, and I try to go about it and like, we need to add value here, like for everybody. And I don't need any recognition or anything like that, but I want everybody around me to succeed, because that means that we can succeed. Because you can't have a sports team and be alone. Like, you can't just go play yourself. Like, you have to make sure that everybody that's with you, that you're taking them to, and that it's quality all around. And you really have that network to share, here's what worked for us, here's what didn't work for us. And you want to have those conversations with people that like have already paid the dummy tax, so that they're not wasting their time going through what you already know. Like, just share it with them. Like, you're going to need this to start. You're going to need that. You're going to need that. Do this on game day. Incorporate this. And just kind of like going through that list and helping others has been really important. And I think that's when they feel less like defensive and more like, oh, okay, like I'm going to befriend you, but it has been really difficult. I know the first year that we had the men's team, and it was before NFPL. It was another league before that. It was called NAPFL. And at the time, so we were going to get into that league. It was already kind of running, and there were like 4 or 5 teams. But at the time, everybody was dead set on the PFL like being launched, which was the Professional Futsal League, and like Mark Cuban was investing in it and all this stuff. And I was around this group of guys, and I had asked this guy, I was like, hey, how do I get Columbus Futsal on that? Like, this is what I want to do. Like, how do I get in there? And he told me to slow down. And I was like, no. And I haven't slowed down since. But I can't believe that that's what he said to me. I was like, hey, I want my team to play there. Like, how do I get more information? Like, what do I need to do? What do I need to draw up? What kind of paperwork do I need to submit? And he just straight up looked at me and told me to slow down. And I was like, that's kind of like been my driving like force since then. And then here, I mean, I'm still here and he's not. So it just goes to show you, like, don't listen to people, because only you know what you can see. You know what I mean? And it's hard to share that vision with others. And there was like a book or a podcast or something I read that was like, entrepreneurs, there's types, and there's some that are visionaries and there's some that are operators, right? And so if you know that you're the visionary type, your right-hand man or right-hand person like needs to be an operator, because they need to be able to execute like everything that you're doing. Now, I can execute it all, sure, but it's not interesting to me. Like, I'm more of like the visionary. And I just like, I don't let that go. And the reputation definitely precedes that. I've had several people that I've talked to in the industry, like you just said, like, oh, well, you seem, you know, like this, you're going after what you want. And I've had other people that I finally get to meet in person or conversate with, and they've kind of said the same thing. So it's a quality that you need to have in this industry, especially being a woman in sports. So now I see like Instagram profiles or podcasts or something of other women that have kind of like gone through it, or like Danny Garcia with like the XFL. There's just, you know, you got to find things that like inspire you, and you got to be like, no, I know my vision, and I know that how this is all going to play out, and I'm enjoying the journey, and I'm enjoying the process, and what's mine is mine. Nobody can take it away from me. Like, right, this world is abundant. There are thousands of kids. There are like 28 million registered futsal players all over the world. Like, you can't tell me it's not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think
no kidding.
Just not letting people try to fear you or put you in your place. And you just got to stay dedicated. Like, this is who I am, and this is what I know I'm going to do. End of story.
I love it. I love it.
Me too. That's so critical right now too, in general, of our entrepreneurs in the sport. Is I feel like here in the United States, especially, we're still in an infancy stage as far as developing this thing. We can't have people that are willing to give up right away. That's for sure. And
No.
I like that you've stood the test of time, and I'm motivated kind of the same way. It sounds like as you, is when I hear someone give me negative feedback or tell me I can't do something, that's what I remember. I've got I hold a grudge on that kind of stuff, so to speak, because it motivates me. So I do it on purpose. So yeah, I could definitely appreciate that. If someone tells me I can't do something or I'm not ready, I'm gonna show them how wrong they are. So
right.
That's really cool.
Right.
I think it shows in your guys'
right.
work.
And no one... Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Melissa. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No one beats themselves up more than like an entrepreneur. Like, they already know
Absolutely.
what they messed up. You know what I mean? They don't need anybody to tell them, because that guilt and like, oh, I got it wrong, has already like fired them up, and they don't need anyone to point it out, because they know, you know,
Right.
like
Right.
they just know.
100%.
And that freedom to fail is the only thing that makes it better, is the only way that it works out. And you just, I mean, you're going to make mistakes, but you got to enjoy it, and you just stay dedicated to your vision and your mission, because you could be going like this, and that mistake is only like a little dip, and you know, and you're going to continue on your path. So yeah, I want more women and more girls to kind of be inspired by that. And that's why I love the women's team, and one of our young girls, you know, growing up through the academy and aging into the women's team is kind of like, it's happening. We're doing it, you know, like all those years of, oh, they're, you know, it's woman led. It's not going to go anywhere. It is. It's going everywhere. So I just, yeah, don't give up. Don't let anybody tell you, you know, what you can and cannot do, and stay true to even your brand. Like, your brand speaks to who you are and what you believe in, and picking those core values as part of your branding. I didn't touch on this when we talked about branding, but if you have those core values set, and ours are integrity, impact, and inspire. And so if you know that every decision that you're making is based around those, then you're going to like be so fast tracked on that path to succeed. And you get people to understand and buy into that mission and live it, like your coaches, your players, even your fans, even like your sponsors and partners. If they all believe in that and buy into that and see that you are living it every day, it takes your community and your brand and how fast you're succeeding, like light years ahead of everybody else.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100%. I am like, I'm hanging on every word with the passion. I can hear it in your voice. It is very contagious. So I'm loving this, and what it's done for you guys, you know, taking that drive from you and being a woman in the sport that has not seen a sport that has not seen a lot of recognition to women's sports until recently. Tell me about what's coming up with the women's division, because you guys have your first game of the season coming up this weekend, and a doubleheader for the men and the women away in Ann Arbor. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about, you know, the kind of the background behind the women's team forming before the NFPL did their thing, and what's your expectation of how this is going to grow in the U.S. from here?
Yeah. We started planning our women's team, pulling players together, and began training before the pandemic happened. So it was 2019. And they were actually set to debut March 2020 at the Arnold Sports Festival, which is here in Columbus, Ohio. And we had to cancel the event like 2 days before it happened because the governor like shut down everything. So we didn't even have a team to play. We were just going to play like black versus blue just to get it out there. Like, hey, we have a women's team. We're putting this together. Like, there is a pathway for you if you enjoy this sport, or try it if you don't know you like it yet or not, or you might think you might want to be good at it. Come try it. Like, come watch these girls. Let's create that pathway. So we started that in 2019, got kind of put on the back burner for a while. And then we were able to, January 2022, play an exhibition game in Grand Rapids for the women. And it was just an outside team kind of in that area. It wasn't Olay, but they did great. Like, they won that game 3-1. They had a lot of viewership online. They had a lot of people cheering them on. And then they played the Summer Cup. And I think they placed like second. There wasn't really like a lot of chatter after it ended, but it was a great experience for them to get those reps, be in a competitive environment, learn why we were training, what we were training, and, you know, take it serious going into the inaugural season. Like, you guys represent Columbus Futsal. You represent this inaugural women's division in the NFPL. Like, we're all making history here, and like, let's make sure it's meaningful and it's powerful and it sets like a precedence. So I'm kind of nervous about the game Saturday because it's been so much work up. But I think, you know, it's going to be really great for them. I love that we're traveling men and women's teams together, like as a club. So they automatically have some support there. And like I said, like the girl that grew up playing in our academy, this is her first official, women's team game. So she actually went from like first kick to first team through our program. So it doesn't matter how the game
Wow.
is going to end. Like
Right.
that's just such an accomplishment and such a great feeling.
That's awesome.
I don't even care about the game. But, it's just like we just need people to hear those stories and feel that emotion that's built into this. And yeah, I'm really excited for the game Saturday, and I'm even more excited for the home opener. And we'll see where it goes. But I know globally, women's sports is not backing down. Like they're pushing for what they deserve. They're getting sponsorship deals that they deserve. And companies and businesses that are investing in women's sports are seeing their ROI like doubled and tripled of what they would investing in men's sports. And we kind of have that trifecta where we're doing men's, women's, and youth, but then we also run a lot of community programming. We also do a lot of clinics with like nonprofits. And so we're like, okay, hey, if you want to invest in women's sports, let me tell you what else we do. You know what I mean? Package. So I just, I'm excited to see that step of it. It's kind of like, it's just been us, like Dante and I, or like our little group or little community of like building this women's department up. And I can't wait till they get further and further down the line with like this sport and this division and this league, maybe even next season or whatever. But I can't wait till they feel that support and that investment from outside the club, because it's just right now it's just internal investment. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's hard to get to training. It's hard to do the extra reps because you're like, what am I doing this for? Well, I don't see anything happening. And you have to trust the process. So I'm excited for them to actually get that, company backing, those sponsorships, and they get everything that they deserve.
Well, that actually kind of ties into something that was asked in the chat, just in general about players and their backgrounds. And a lot of these folks too, they have a life outside of futsal. It's shocking, I know, but they, you guys have it seems you have a good blend of older and younger players. So you have kids that are, young women that are probably going through school or have jobs, and adults that, have a full-time job on top of this as this develops. And with it being so early on and it's that classic chicken before the egg in business of, trying to prove yourself so you can get the funding, but get the funding so that we can run this thing. It's a delicate balancing act, but I'm really excited to see what this women's division does. It couldn't have come at a better time, in my opinion. I don't know that, if it's the folks at NFPL just being that good at being planning ahead and predicting this, but with the Women's World Cup on the way, so many other developments in women's futsal and women's sports across the globe. We don't often talk about the outdoor game on this channel, but I think of the Women's Euro over the last summer having record attendance in person. I think they were the most attended soccer game of the year. Wow. Before the World Cup. 92,000 people in Wembley watching a Women's Euro. I think that's fantastic. And then even looking at the Women's Euro for futsal that had 5,000 people there in Lisbon. So there is definitely a lot of upside to women's sports. I think that the right people are pushing for more, and it's really exciting stuff. And then to kind of tie even more into a question from the chat with the women's division, Melissa, what is this is a question from Juan in the chat. Where do you place yourself in the women's division as far as results for this season? Is there kind of a prediction you guys see based on what you've seen so far from the summer that you think that, as an expectation is where you want to place?
I think summer was a good spot for us. I don't think that we have all the pieces in commitment that's there to probably win it all our first go around, but I definitely think we have a strong team, but a team that doesn't have, I would say 50% have futsal experience and like maybe 50% doesn't. So it's going to be hard to say like what we're going to get here. So I would definitely say, you know, we're not a mediocre team. We're going to be strong. You know, we're going to be competitive. And hopefully, I think the Summer Cup places us just about right. You know, we're going to be in that semifinal finalist range.
You bring up a good point with the player base too, and this is something I know Luke and I talk about a lot. Is the in fact, Luke, you want to queue up this question? I feel like I'm stealing your content here by doing this.
No. You go ahead.
All right. I put it out there. So, you know, with the women's pool of talent in the United States for soccer being so deep, particularly compared to the rest of the world and where they place and constantly being in World Cup finals and winning. Do you think that translates to the futsal side of the U.S. game? Is that where you're seeing some of these players where there's just a lot of talent in the outdoor game that can translate to what we do?
I hope. I mean, the women have been so successful in soccer and grass soccer, and that's been amazing to see. I mean, they are carrying this nation in the soccer realm, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how that translates to women in futsal. But I don't think it's going to happen very quickly. That's probably going to definitely take a decade or two, I would imagine, because girls want to go to college and play soccer. They want to do college soccer because that's like their way in, you know, like there's obviously like some other like draft and scouting and MLS academies and like other ways that like boys can kind of get into that career path at like U13, U14, you know, stuff like that. And there's not as many opportunities like that for girls. So if girls and women are like, I know that I want to try to get into the, you know, women's professional soccer scene or the women's national team, if that's my path and that's my vision, like college is an automatic first step for them. That's where they're headed. And so at some point in time, like futsal kind of takes a back seat to that. And so it's really going to be up to the powers at U.S. Soccer and the powers at, you know, like the universities and then just us here on the local scenes, kind of pushing that and growing that and aiding, being an extension to the next step, those higher realms. Like it's really going to have to, there's going to have to be enough investment from U.S. Soccer and I think the universities to get girls on the futsal only path. And I think that's going to take definitely over a decade.
That's the interesting thing too, is when I think of the development in 2022 of the women's game, we saw, of course, what's most familiar to us here on the call and probably in the chat is the NFPL doing what they did in creating this women's division. And you see a lot of the same teams that laid the roots for the men's division stepping up, creating these women's teams and paving that path. You also saw a job posting at U.S. Soccer last year for a women's head futsal coach, which is super, super exciting to me and long overdue. And then the other interesting tidbit is, you know, way out for us anyway, maybe not way out for some others in the chat, but way out in Southern California, that you see Westcliff University starting to lay the groundwork for collegiate futsal. And I saw a couple of weeks ago that they announced their head coach for a women's team.
I saw that.
Is super exciting.
But who are they playing? Who and what are they playing?
That's the magic question, right? So that's the curious thing. And I remember that being the question for Ivan as well on the men's side is like, okay, so you've started it, which is good. But now what? Like, now what do we do? Like, who do we play? And
if U.S. Soccer is laying down the foundation for the women's futsal national team, you know, and hiring, putting that ad out for the coach and stuff, it's like, okay, there are so many other variables that have to align with that. Like, so now almost everybody in CONCACAF is going to have a women's futsal team to play, or else, like, where are we playing? What are we doing? How do we get in? Like, you know, that's where national teams compete. So it's like, does Canada have a women's team ready to go? Does Mexico? Like, just even the neighboring countries to start doing like exhibitions or something. Like, I feel like there's so many variables. It's like, where is it going and how quickly? Like, what's the trajectory? But having at least a women's league in the NFPL in place where women are getting those reps and, you know, might be the first available picks for something like this because they have the most experience or they are the most vetted. You know, it's kind of like what I said earlier. It might just be like right place, right time, right people.
That actually brings up something I've been thinking about, and I don't think the three of us haven't really talked about this or anything before, because we do get to talk a lot with the NFPL community. But so we look at the news of the World Cup, the Women's Futsal World Cup, and we didn't get a date. We don't know when it's going to happen. The carrot continues to be dangled way out here. But my question for you, Melissa, would be this: what do you think? What kind of pressure do you think that would put on someone like a CONCACAF or a UEFA already has their thing? So let's take an AFCON, for example. Does that kind of force the regions to now start building some infrastructure to allow us to look ahead to something? Or do you think it needs to continue to be grassroots and build up to a regional level to build this out and be able to eventually someday qualify for that Women's World Cup?
I don't know how it's going to play out. I mean, it's like the best women's team in futsal there is, you know? So there are like Portugal, Spain, they're already doing it. It's like, what's kind of happening here in North America and how do we catch up? You know,
that's the $1 million question, right?
How?
Yeah,
but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. I mean, even with the Angels FC club in Los Angeles that like all those women invested into or whatever, and then Alyssa Thompson just got signed to it, I think at 18 years old. They just got a $1 billion valuation. So wow. Once it happens and it's out of the floodgates, I feel like it snowballs and can happen quickly, but it's just like, what's the plan? You know what I mean? Because there has to be a plan A, and you just follow plan A with some mistakes because there can't be a plan B, because plan B is going to be like, well, we don't have the funding and we don't have the people, so we're going to table it.
Right.
And that's what I don't want to see happen, you know?
Well,
so
I think
there's a strong plan A, and maybe you lean into those other confederations and just be like, what did you do to make this work? Let's talk. Let's, you know, share opinions.
I think we really got to take a moment and you know, and acknowledge FIFA and especially, you know, the United States soccer program having an awesome plan.
Yeah. Yes. Support. I mean, like, you need support.
Sorry. I didn't. Yeah. I'm sorry. I had to take my dig at U.S. soccer. They drive me bananas. But
it's true.
But speaking to what you're saying and coming out of the floodgates, and I've expressed this opinion going back to Jake's original question, is I've heard it said that the U.S. women could field 2 national teams and take first and second in the Women's World Cup. And from what I see, I mean, it's true. And now this is where Jake and I kind of have our differences is, I mean, there's got to be this girls chomping at the bit to play. There's got to be just a slew. And this is the non-purist Jake that says, hey, you know, hey, Susie, you know, or hey, whatever. And have you ever thought about futsal, you know? And like you said, just creating that. And I wonder if this is where they're at, is just, let's create it.
Yeah.
And we'll bring these people in and we'll just go dominate, and we'll go to wherever and we'll just, and that's what I think maybe Westcliff is at, is like, hey, we're going to create it and we're going to create the buzz and we're going to be, and kind of like your attitude with Columbus, you know, we're going to be the buzz until everybody comes up alongside us, and we're going to beat that drum. You know, I don't know. I'm with you. I have no clue, but
sometimes it's just like popping up the goals and seeing what you got in front of you.
Right.
Like, you know,
right.
sometimes that is the plan.
Right.
You just get the goals popped up and see what happens. But I do think that, you know, there's a lot of girls, like you said, that the women's national team for soccer could have 2 competitive teams and take first and second because there's such a strong player pool. There's such a strong player pool across the nation at every level with girls and women. And so it's just like, who's gonna go into the dark side for futsal, you know? And but the boys, I feel like it's more diluted because they're kind of picking and choosing between like basketball, football, wrestling, you know, all these things or whatever. And girls have just been like, we're just going to monopolize soccer here while you guys are doing all those other sports. I mean, yes, girls can play any other sports they want, but they found their niche. They found what they were good at, what they could, you know, be better at than the guys, what they could get a platform and a stage on. And it's so like, what's the generation of girls that's going to take that futsal path, you know, and what's going to make them do it? Like what's the value? Is it just fun? Is it just fun? Is it just, I'm really good at this? Do I have a passion for it? Because sometimes you just meet people that have a passion for the sport and they're not like, I'm going to go to college for this. I'm going to play pro for this, which is a lot of what you hear. Oh, I want a college scholarship or I want to go pro. Okay. But where's the passion? Like, who are the people that are doing this because they love it, that have a passion for it, that are doing it for fun? Because when you get that kind of camaraderie, those things tend to go farther because you're going together. You know what I mean? An individual athlete that's just like, well, I'm going to go to college or I'm going to, you know, go pro or whatever. They're kind of like on their own. And that's like an individual endeavor, which is fine. Like, well, I'll always, you know, support those paths and things like that. But I think like when you have a group of like-minded people, you're always going to go farther, you know, and it's hard to find. Okay.
Everyone's got to be pulling on the rope in the same direction, right? So it's yeah, it's kind of the key. So let me ask you this: so someone's listening to this or thinking about, you know, maybe someone at another academy is thinking, how do I get involved in a women's division? Tell us kind of walk us through, like what are some of the challenges you guys have run into, or is there anything that sticks out to you that you know, has been particularly rewarding about getting involved in this women's division? I know it's early because we haven't seen that first official game yet of league play, but tell us what your advice would be to someone that's thinking about maybe getting involved and joining a women's league.
Yeah, I would 100% say do it. You know, try it, do it. There are definitely challenges. Like at first I thought when we first started the women's program, I was like, wow, they are all dedicated. They're all motivated. They all have self-discipline. They all communicate together. I'm like, this is completely opposite from the men's side. So I was like, this is wonderful. This is so good. Like we actually have people at practice and people are actually talking to each other and they're friends, you know? And so at first I was like, oh, this is great. And then when the women get to the point where they're having to choose between like soccer and futsal, then you're like, no, like our perfect bubble. But it's fine. Like you just gotta find like a deep enough player pool where women have their lives like planned, right? You know, so it's like they have vacations and they have weddings and they have things that they already have a priority like with their job. And so if you want a women's team or you want to join like the NFPL division, make sure you have a deep player pool of women that you can call up that are all going to be similarly skilled. So when one drops off or isn't available, you know, you have someone equally as good to where the level of your team doesn't go down. So they all have to know what the mission is at training. They have to know all the plays. They have to all be able to, you know, play together. So I think having a deep player pool, like a lot of people are like, oh, it's just 5x5, 5v5. No, you need like a 20-person player pool. Like you really do, because some people aren't going to be available certain days. Some people are going to get injured. Some people are not going to show up for practice 2 weeks and then be like, hey, can I get on the game roster? And you're like, no, you can't. You didn't train, you know? So yeah, have a deep player pool and just make sure that you're at least getting in some exhibition games, or, you know, you have a good leader for the team. Like leadership is so hard because some people can be like really good coaches in the games, or really good trainers at practice. But like, who's the leader that's roping all those pieces together and keeping them dedicated on the mission of each game and the entirety of the season. Because when a season spans, 3 months and you've already been training for 3 months prior, and then they're like, wow, I just spent 6 months on this. They kind of start getting like detached and losing, what the vision and the mission is. And so people with leadership skills, like hard leadership skills, not even like the soft skills, like I'm talking about like true leaders that can share that passion, that know every piece of how to run a team and support people. And it's hard to manage people. So you have to have that leadership key person.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to get together and play, but at the end of the day, it is an organization. So having someone that can kind of
there's a lot of people that just want to get together and play, but you're like, this isn't pickup. Like, this is a league.
Right.
This is a league. Exactly. We have standings. Right. We have a club to represent. We have a city to represent. We have a whole youth academy to represent. Like, that's fine. You love to play, but this isn't the spot. Like, we have other things that we need to do to be able to play.
Definitely. So this is a question we try to ask everybody that we usually try and frame it in a way to how it relates to them. So I'm going to ask you the same thing, and I'm going to try and tailor it a little bit. So we asked Eric a similar question about the NFPL. So I'm going to kind of make mine specific to the women's division, since that's been our focus today. But if you could fantasy book, so to speak, the league and its next steps on how to develop the women's game, what would you prioritize? What would you change? If you had the keys to the league, what would you do to cultivate the sport in the women's division?
I've kind of almost had this conversation before, but for me personally, you have to make sure that those other people are succeeding. Like, if you want to run a league, you have to make sure that each franchise and each club is succeeding. So it's like, how do you do that? You have to create that network. You have to share the failures, share what worked, have documentation of like an interest kit. Here are the check boxes that you can check off before you even say, hey, we won in the league, And then when you say, hey, we won in the league, have all the next set of check boxes. And just so they know exactly like what to expect, because a lot of people do just want to show up and play, and it's not show up and play. They start showing up and playing, and they're like, this isn't sustainable because I didn't know that we had to do X, Y, and Z. So I think it's really laying everything out and like supporting the next newcomer that's coming into the women's division, and just taking them under your wing and just being like, this is going to be difficult. So if you have questions, like, feel free to reach out. If you're finding something that you didn't know you had to do in part of this league, those are the veterans that came before you, or the people that came before you are the people to ask. Like, get a mentor, find somebody in the league that you admire, and they're just your go-to for questions like that. But yeah, it looks good. Like, you think you can just have a team and show up and play, but you really have to know like what all those check boxes are before you get started. How much is it going to cost me to travel, right? How many times am I going to travel? How many hours am I traveling? Because all your players like need to know that, what's your uniform policy, before, during, and after the game? How do you manage your kits? What's the post-game situation? Like, how quickly do you report back to training, like after a long weekend? Like, some of us are traveling from Ohio to Minnesota. Like, how do you manage that? A team that just wants to play isn't going to know how to manage that. And so it's like, are we as a league or as a community laying out the blueprint saying, this is what you need to get started, and figure out all those pieces? But if you have questions along the way, almost like a consulting agency, which I've thought about doing like several times throughout this tenure of futsal, but helping them find those resources and having, a go-to person like a mentor, definitely need it.
Absolutely. Well, and a familiar face in the chat that you may know, Dante, says it takes a village. Absolutely. It's a group effort. That applies to so much in life. It really does. It's it's important for us as a community, especially now, and especially with the women's game growing the way it is, to now we've been handed a couple of opportunities to prove we want this. It's Luke and I's job as fans to prove we want it and show up and watch. It's the responsibility of the clubs that are involved to be stewards of the game and of the clubs and cultivate it. It's a full team effort. Everybody has a job to do. It's the league's job to set you guys up for success. There's a lot of things that need to go right, and there needs to be support from every single level, from fan to league, and it's got to happen, and that's what's going to get us to that next level. And you mentioned a little bit about we referenced the PFL several years ago, and that unfortunate miss and getting a professional league here. This is the kind of stuff now, the grassroots, that's going to prove that there's a demand for a women's version of that. And I've talked to some people in local futsal circles that have considered the fact that maybe the women get a professional league before the men do, because that side of the game and that side of sports is just growing so rapidly. Do we ride that wave and make that our priority instead of the men? I'd be curious to see that, actually. I think that'd be really cool to see the women start the first professional futsal league in the United States. I think that would be monumental and really poetic, actually, for the sport.
I'm not against it.
I didn't think you would be.
That would be fine by me. Yeah, even what you guys have done behind the scenes here with the Discord and the videos and everything that you're helping out with, like streaming and getting that community of fans together, was a missing piece. I mean, this is a strategic piece that every sport needs, and I think you guys are doing a great job. It was really so refreshing to see a spot where fans could go and mingle and converse and get to know the teams. And it was so much more authentic and original than just, for so many years, it was just Dante or I just talking into a camera, telling people about football or telling people about Columbus football. And it's like, they don't want to hear it from us anymore. They want to hear it from fans that are experiencing it. And so this community is vital. It really is. You guys are doing a great job.
Well, thank you. That's Luke. It was Luke's idea to do the Discord. He deserves the public recognition for that. He's shaking his head, but it's the truth. And he was the one that encouraged me to kind of mimic that for this channel and kind of maybe take that reach more global if people are interested in that. But we try and bounce people over to NFPL as much as possible. We found a couple of our friends in England through covering things over there, and the timing for them doesn't work as well as it does for us. For some morning beers to watch the Premier League, for them it's midnight, 1 o'clock. But when we're doing our thing, but they're interested. I've seen some guys interested in doing analytics on the games just to kind of help us and club owners track, maybe more of the statistics, which I think is really interesting. It's way above my head, but it's interesting.
Yeah, when they can track their favorite player and like the stats and stuff, that's another vital piece I feel like is missing. But you need the manpower behind the scenes to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You really
Absolutely.
Do. But
100%.
Yeah, there's a market for it, so don't give up. Like, keep doing these community things and all that stuff. I see people do podcasts. Like, there's a girl on the internet somewhere or on every platform, but she has a multi-million-dollar business just teaching people about Excel, and they call her Miss Excel, and she just teaches people about Microsoft Excel. And she has like millions and millions of followers, and she's become lucrative from this. And there's another guy that runs just a podcast channel for families visiting Disney, and he quit his job as a lawyer and now just does his podcast talking about Disney parks. Wow. So don't give up. There is a market for this. There's enough people in the world that love futsal. If enough people love Microsoft Excel that they can,
I was gonna say,
can make it, we can make it.
Okay. Well, I have another can of worms to open, but we don't want to keep you, Melissa. If it's too much, if you need to go, we understand. It's fine. So I put this to the boys in England. I don't know really if they took. I see you as more of the media type. So my personal view on the status of sports in general nowadays is is it's going to take it's taking a turn. And this is my prediction, is that live sports will always be around, but I think the way that the wave coming on of consuming these live sports is different. I think this Twitch iteration, this live chat iteration, where people can actually talk about the game in real time with their friends in a chat, and it's not just friends on the couch. It's friends in England, it's friends in Africa, it's friends in Brazil, and we're all consuming this media together, and I just feel like it has this like kind of more brotherhood to it, or sisterhood, have you. Just this media consumption is just kind of taking this whole new turn for me in my view, and that's why I kind of push this streaming platform. Just from someone who's heavily into media, I just kind of want to get your 2 cents on that kind of idea of media taking or becoming different or evolving.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going in that direction. Hardly anybody wants to watch sports alone. I mean, you just don't. Even in my own household, like I have 4 boys, and when we have spare time every night, if we put on the TV, it's a sporting game, whether it's hockey, basketball, soccer, if we're streaming futsal or something. When we sit down in the living room together, we're putting on sports, live sports, because it's not a sitcom, it's not a movie we've already seen, it's live. It's something that hasn't happened yet. And so when you're consuming that all together, you want to talk about it. So nobody wants to watch sports alone. They want to consume it. They want to talk about what just happened because it's live. Like you're all consuming it at the same time. So when you have those connections through Twitter or Discord or whatever, and you're able to share an interest with somebody and talk about what you just saw on TV, even like how quickly the news spread, like about Damar Hamlin, during like the Bills and Bengals game and things like that. Like that's live consumption and live marketing and things like that you need to share with your sports fans, with people that understand that situation, understand, like the heartfelt emotions of players and athletes, or like a great play in a game, or, the Hail Mary pass or the buzzer beater or whatever. Like people want to share those things together. And so maybe you want to be in the comfort of your own home and you're in bed or you're on the couch and you're just consuming it through, your iPhone or whatever. But you can immediately hop on Twitter and give your thoughts and have people respond and share that and talk about that. And I think that that's why sports is always going to be like top-notch consumption for me, and out of anything else. Like after you see a movie, you've already seen it. Like, yeah, you can rewatch it or whatever, but sports is always something new.
Right. Exactly.
I think it's, particularly here in the States as well, where, the United States is kind of, I don't mean to beat our own chest here, but I think they do sports better than anybody in the world. It's such a large market. It's done so well and so clean across so many multitudes of sports. In so many other places in the world, they do soccer and futsal better than us, but there's no reason in the world why someone with a sports development background could get involved in something like this and then blow it up on even a live stream and make it the next big thing. Yeah. It's just about finding that person that's gonna take it there. And in the meantime, that's why we're so passionate about it, and we volunteer and find a way to make it look as professional as possible. Fake it till we make it. And then when someone's ready to really take it and put the money in, then people are going to love this thing. They really are. And I think that I say this often, but I think futsal has something for the American sports fan that perhaps soccer is missing. You hear so much about people complaining about the ties or the time or the injuries that happen to burn some time. And futsal takes all of that out of it. And the interesting thing to me is futsal has this way of exposing your biggest weaknesses as a player. And so you get such a high level of intensity, and you get this all around player in every position. You can't afford not to be, or you'll be immediately exposed. And I just think that makes it so interesting of a sport.
Yeah. You have
when Americans truly discover this, and it goes outside of our circle of the grassroots folks, it could blow up. I think it could be very, very interesting to see where futsal goes from here.
It's so easy for just the average sports enthusiast to watch and kind of grasp it, because if you know hockey and you know basketball and you know soccer and you've consumed those sports, you can easily start to dissect and piece those together like through futsal.
Very much
Absolutely.
so. Very much
exactly so. Well, the other thing I want to make sure we do and get out there before we wrap things up is the most important thing, and that's when Columbus is in action next. So it is this weekend. The women kick off at 6 p.m. in Ann Arbor, Michigan against Futsal Factory, Michigan Futsal Factory. And then the men follow immediately afterwards at 8 p.m. Both those times are Eastern Standard Time, and that will also be against Ann Arbor, Michigan as well. So you will be in the same place, same time. You can find that on the NFPL's YouTube channel, so you can watch the live stream there. Luke will be very involved in that, making sure that your viewing experience is exceptional. I will be floating around there as well, so make sure you guys say hi to me in the chat and cheer on Columbus. Unless you're from Ann Arbor, I won't hold it against you, but as a fellow Ohioan, I would encourage you to cheer for Columbus.
This is such an interesting matchup, right?
It is.
Because if you're college football fans, this is a very interesting matchup.
It is. You know what's really interesting about both these things that just came to mind too is you have two teams from college football meccas that are, they have this rivalry going on in the NFPL as well. It's funny how cities' cultures will kind of transcend through sports, and I kind of see that here.
Yes.
Both teams with a lot of history, and I think that this is going to be a really good game. I'm really excited for this game. Certainly a tough road trip for you guys, I would imagine, but especially with the time travel and everything up from Columbus. But this is not going to be one to miss, and it's going to be a game of the week on the NFPL channel for a reason. So make sure you guys check out Columbus. In addition to that, I have already added the links to all the social media pages for not only Columbus Futsal, but Columbus Futsal's women's pages as well on all social media platforms in the description of this live stream. So please, please, please make sure you follow along, because the folks over at Columbus, Dante in the chat, Melissa here with us live, are doing a great job, and you should check out what they're doing. I think you'll really enjoy it. So Melissa, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything you want to put out there before we wrap things up?
Not really. Just want to remind everybody that we're at home again on January 28th, and that's benefiting On Our Sleeves movement for children's mental health. And you can donate through our website online or attend the game, and ticket proceeds go to support children's mental health.
An awesome program, awesome charity. I'm really excited about that.
Me too.
So before we do close out, there's one more thing that I think we should do as a public service announcement. When you guys score, there's a certain little phrase that gets yelled at. And will you share that with us so that the folks at home can join in when they're watching the stream?
Oh God, Dante's so much better at this. But when we score or like have an amazing block, and all the kids and everybody, all the fans, they do this too. They go, "Whoo!" And it's so funny when newcomers, they think we're yelling boo. Like they think we're yelling boo and booing what happened. And I have to tell you this, at regionals, our team was playing, our high school boys team was playing like a team from Indiana or whatever. And there were some kids that came and sat next to me. They were just running around waiting for their game or whatever. And they were like, "What team is this?" And they're like, "I think it's Jenga." And they're like, "No." And then they heard us score, and they heard like the who and like that what we do and the sound, and they recognized that sound, and they said, "Oh, it's Columbus, it's that team." And they didn't know us from our uniform, they didn't know us from our style of play, they didn't know us from the crest, but they knew us from that. And
that is awesome.
That's just part of that culture. That's how you build these great programs. So love it. You gotta love it.
I was half expecting that Dante would break into the room and do it for us, but just hear the door slam open, and then there he is.
He's out playing soccer.
Funny. But I think we'll hear plenty of that coming from Columbus. I think it's a bright season ahead for you guys in both the men's and the women's division. So thank you to everyone in the chat that has joined. Vamos Columbus has received the chat. make sure and bring the noise, and make sure you guys join us in the chat for the live stream this weekend as we get involved. And until I see you then, don't forget to play with your soul.
See you guys.